Ambassador walked through the crystal halls of the station with practiced calm. Her boots made soft, clicking sounds on the smooth floor as she carried the signed peace agreement in her briefcase. After 6 months of careful talks, she had finally done it again. 3 powerful alien races that wanted to kill each other were now going to share the mining region instead of fighting over it. The Empire looked like living crystals. Their bodies were tall and sharp, with light moving through their skin like water. They spoke with voices that sounded like wind chimes. The collective was different. They were a hive mind, thousands of bug-like creatures that thought as one. Their ships looked like giant insects made of metal. The Federation was the most like humans, but bigger and stronger. They loved to fight and thought strength was the most important thing in the universe. Had spent months learning how each species thought. They believed they were better than everyone else because they were older. They wanted resources to feed their growing numbers. They saw fighting as natural and good. She had to find a way to give each group what they needed without taking away from the others. The solution was clever. They would get the most valuable crystals because of their ancient knowledge. They would get the biggest mining areas because they had the most workers. They would guard the whole region and get paid for protection. Everyone won something. Everyone lost something. That was how human diplomacy worked. Reached the meeting room where the 3 leaders waited. High Commander of the stood like a living statue made of blue crystal. Queen Voice Ra spoke for the collective, her insect eyes watching everything. General represented the Federation, his huge hands resting on the table. The agreement is finished, said, placing copies in front of each leader. Each of your peoples will benefit. The mining rights will be shared according to the plan we discussed. Crystals glowed brighter. The Empire accepts this arrangement. Your species has wisdom, Ambassador. Ra's mandibles clicked. The collective agrees. The humans see paths we did not consider. General nodded his massive head. They will honor this treaty. You have prevented much bloodshed today. Smiled. This was her 847th successful peace agreement. Humans had been doing this for 15 years, ever since first contact. They had become the galaxy's mediators, the ones everyone called when fights broke out. Other species were stronger, faster, or smarter, but humans had something special. They could understand how different minds worked. They could find ways for enemies to become partners. After the ceremony, walked to her ship with her aide. Another war prevented, he said, updating his records. The Council will be pleased. I hope so, replied, but something bothered her. During the talks, she had noticed strange looks between the alien leaders, glances that meant something, whispered words in languages her translator did not catch. She had learned to read body language from many species, and these signs worried her. Her ship, the Peacemaker, left the station and jumped to hyperspace, sat in her cabin and wrote her report. She described how the negotiations worked, what each side wanted, and how the compromise satisfied everyone. She did not write about her worries. There was no proof, only feelings. On the bridge, Captain Torres received a message from Earth. Ambassador, the Galactic Council wants to thank humanity for preventing another war. They say our diplomatic skills have saved millions of lives. Nodded. She felt proud of what humans had achieved. In just 15 years, they had helped create lasting peace between dozens of species. Wars that could have destroyed whole civilizations had been stopped by human mediators who found better ways to solve problems. But in the dark space between stars, other conversations were happening. On the command ship, High Commander spoke with his war council. The humans think they have won again, he said, his crystals pulsing with anger. They make us bow to insects and barbarians. They prevent the natural order. What would you have us do? Asked one of his officers. Their solutions work, the peace holds. Peace is not natural, replied. The strong should rule the weak. The empire is the oldest, the most advanced. We should not share what is ours by right. The humans have made us weak with their compromises. Similar talks were happening on the ship. Queen Voice Ra communicated with the hive mind across space. The humans prevent us from taking what we need. They force us to accept less than we deserve. Their peace makes us dependent on others. On the flagship, General spoke with his warriors. These human peacemakers stop us from proving our strength. They make us guards instead of conquerors. They teach weakness when we should show power. The three species had different reasons, but they shared the same feeling. Humans had stopped their wars, but they had also stopped their victories. Each group believed they could have one if left alone. Each group thought human diplomacy only helped their enemies. Did not know about these growing resentments. She arrived back at Earth feeling good about another successful mission. The president congratulated her. The media praised human diplomatic success. The galaxy seemed more peaceful than ever. In her apartment overlooking New York Harbor, looked at the stars through her window. Somewhere out there, hundreds of species lived in peace because of human efforts. It was a good feeling, knowing that her work prevented suffering and death. She did not know that those same species were beginning to see humans not as wise mediators, but as obstacles to their true destinies. She did not know that preventing wars was starting to be seen as preventing justice. She did not know that gratitude was slowly turning into resentment. The seeds of humanity's greatest test were already growing in the dark spaces between the stars. Soon, those seeds would bloom into something that would change everything humans thought they knew about peace, war, and their place in the galaxy. 18 months after the agreement, Ambassador received the emergency message at 3 in the morning. Her wrist communicator buzzed with the priority signal that meant lives were in danger. She rolled out of bed and activated the hologram display. Captain Torres appeared, his face grim. "Ambassador, we have a major problem. The mining station in Sector 7 has been destroyed. Early reports suggest an attack." Felt her stomach drop. How many casualties? 12,000 workers dead. The station was completely destroyed by military-grade weapons. The Federation denies involvement, but the weapons' signatures match their technology. Was already getting dressed. Set course for the region. Contact all 3 governments. We need emergency talks before this escalates. But it was too late for talks. By the time reached the region, revenge fleets were attacking mining ships. The Federation responded by declaring they had broken the peace treaty. The Empire announced they would defend their territory from both sides. Within a week, full war had erupted. The careful balance had created was destroyed. Ships burned in space. Colonies were evacuated. The 3 species that had lived in peace for 18 months were trying to destroy each other. Worked desperately to arrange new negotiations. She sent messages to all 3 leaders, offering to mediate. Their responses confused her. High Commander replied first. The Empire will not negotiate with species that break agreements. Human diplomacy has failed. Your weakness allowed this war to begin. Queen Voice Ra's message was similar. The collective trusted human promises of peace. Your naive methods let our enemies prepare for attack. Human mediators cannot understand real conflict. General's response was the most direct. Warriors do not need human protection. Your peacemaking made us soft. We should have conquered this region from the beginning. Stared at the messages in her office aboard the Peacemaker. Something was wrong. The weapons signatures from the station attack did not match standard patterns. She had studied their technology for months during the negotiations. These weapons were more advanced, more precise. Entered her office with a data pad. Ambassador, Intelligence Division found something disturbing. The attack on the station shows signs of sabotage from the inside. Looked at the technical analysis. The explosion had started in the station's power core, but the damage pattern was strange. Someone with detailed knowledge of technology had placed charges in exactly the right spots to cause maximum destruction. Only 3 species knew enough about that station to do this, said. The themselves, us, and the finished. They provided the technical specifications during the original negotiations. Felt cold understanding wash over her. Send a priority message to Earth intelligence. I want deep scans of all communications between the three species over the past 6 months. The investigation took 3 days. When the results came back, wished she had been wrong. Hidden in layers of encrypted communications, Earth's computers found the proof. They had been planning the sabotage for over a year. The messages were clear, had convinced military leaders from all three species that human peacemaking was making them weak. He argued that natural selection required conflict, and that humans were preventing the strong from ruling the weak. The sabotage was designed to discredit human diplomacy and restart the cycle of war. But the conspiracy was bigger than had imagined. The messages included communications with dozens of other species across the galaxy. The plan was not just to end the agreement. The goal was to end human influence entirely. She read transcripts of secret meetings where alien leaders discussed the human problem. They called humans soft manipulators, who prevented natural hierarchies from forming. They planned to strip humanity of diplomatic immunity and reduce Earth to a client state. Called an emergency meeting with the human diplomatic team. She shared the evidence with 12 of her most trusted colleagues. The room fell silent as they read the proof of betrayal. They used our success against us, said Ambassador from the African Union. Every peace we created made them more resentful. They see us as obstacles to their true nature, added Ambassador Singh from the Asian Coalition. We prevented wars, but we also prevented victories. Opened her communicator to contact Earth when another priority message arrived. This one made her blood freeze. The Galactic Council had voted to strip humanity of diplomatic immunity. Human colonies were now considered disputed territory. Trade routes to Earth were being blockaded. The message from President was desperate. We need solutions fast. Human civilians are being attacked throughout the galaxy. Our embassies are being expelled. The species we helped are turning against us. What should we do? Looked around the room at her fellow ambassadors. These were the best diplomatic minds humanity had produced. They had prevented hundreds of wars, saved millions of lives, and brought peace to dozens of worlds. Now their own species was under attack. We offer greater concessions, said finally. We show them we are still committed to peace. We demonstrate that we want to help, not control. The human response was swift and generous. President announced that Earth would share its advanced agricultural technology freely with all species. Human medical discoveries that had cured diseases across the galaxy would be given away without cost. Humanity would accept a reduced role in galactic affairs if it meant peace. The alien response was not what humans expected. Instead of gratitude, there was mockery. Instead of acceptance, there was increased aggression. The Empire issued a statement calling the human offer proof of weakness and admission of guilt. Watch from her ship as human freighters were boarded and searched by alien patrols. Human colonies were inspected by forces that looked more like invaders than peacekeepers. The message was becoming clear: submit completely or face destruction. In her quarters that night, looked at the pictures on her desk. Photos from successful peace negotiations, images of former enemies shaking hands, certificates of gratitude from species that humans had helped. All of it seemed meaningless now. Knocked on her door. Ambassador, incoming message from the High Command. They want to discuss terms for human surrender. Closed her eyes. 15 years of diplomatic success were crumbling. The galaxy had decided that humanity's greatest strength was actually a weakness. Their ability to make peace had somehow made them enemies of everyone they had tried to help. She opened the message from. The crystal being's words were cold and final. The human species will accept client status under protection or face the consequences of their meddling. You have prevented natural selection long enough. The galaxy belongs to the strong, not the weak. Deleted the message without responding. She had spent her career finding ways for different species to coexist. She had believed that understanding and compromise could solve any conflict. Now she faced a problem that diplomacy could not fix: what to do when the galaxy decides that peace itself is the enemy. Outside her window, the stars looked the same as always, but knew that humanity's place among those stars had changed forever. The question now was not how to make peace, but how to survive in a galaxy that had decided humans were too dangerous to remain free. Dr. Sarah was treating a young patient when the first explosions shook the New Geneva Medical Center. The insect-like child had been brought to the colony for gene therapy that could only be performed by human doctors. Sarah's hand stayed steady as she continued the delicate procedure while emergency alarms wailed outside. "Doctor, we need to evacuate now," her nurse called from the doorway. Through the medical center's windows, they could see warships descending through the atmosphere like falling stars. Sarah looked at the patient on her table. The young was unconscious, halfway through surgery that would save her life. "Give me 5 more minutes," she said, her voice calm despite the growing sound of weapons fire. "I can't leave her like this." New Geneva was humanity's proudest colony. Built on a garden world with crystal lakes and purple forests, it was home to 1.3 million people dedicated to research and healing. The medical centers here had developed cures for dozens of diseases that affected species across the galaxy. The universities taught alien children alongside human ones. The research stations shared their discoveries freely with anyone who needed them. Sarah had been born here 27 years ago. Her father was president back on Earth, but Sarah had chosen medicine over politics. She believed that healing transcended species barriers. Her patients came from hundreds of worlds, seeking treatments that only human science could provide. The fleet took positions over the colony's main cities. Their commander, War Primary Ion, opened communication channels to broadcast across the galaxy. His crystal form glowed with cold light as he spoke. "Attention, all species. The Empire has discovered illegal weapons research on the human world of New Geneva. For the safety of the galaxy, we will conduct a police action to secure these dangerous materials." In the medical center, Sarah finished the surgery and carefully moved her patient to a recovery chamber. Outside, she could hear the sound of landing craft touching down in the colony's central plaza. The troops that emerged were not police. They carried military weapons and moved with the precision of an invasion force. "This is Dr. Sarah at New Geneva Medical Center," she said into her emergency communicator. "There are no weapons here. This is a medical facility. We have patients from 12 different species currently in treatment." The response from the commander was emotionless. "All human facilities are considered potential weapon sites. Evacuate immediately or face the consequences." Sarah looked around the medical center. The intensive care ward held dozens of critically ill patients. Some were human, but many were aliens whose families had traveled across the galaxy seeking human medical expertise. Moving them could kill them. "I'm not leaving my patients," Sarah said. She activated her personal recorder and began broadcasting to the Galactic Communication Network. Her transmission would reach every inhabited world. "This is Dr. Sarah speaking from New Geneva Colony. The claim we have weapons, but this is a medical research facility. I'm going to show you what we really do here." She walked through the medical center with her camera, showing the research labs where scientists worked on genetic diseases. She showed the children's ward, where young aliens learned to walk again after accidents. She showed the elderly care center, where beings from dozens of species lived out their final years in comfort. "This is our weapon," Sarah said, holding up a vial of medicine. "It cures bone cancer in children. This computer contains research that stopped a plague on 6 worlds. Our weapons heal. Our technology saves lives." The forces began their systematic destruction of the colony. They moved from building to building, removing all inhabitants. Those who resisted were killed immediately. Those who cooperated were taken to gathering points where they were sorted into groups. Sarah continued broadcasting as long as she could. Her camera showed the truth of what was happening. They were not conducting a police action. They were committing genocide. Men, women, and children were executed methodically. The alien students and patients were killed alongside the humans. "Remember us not for how we died, but for how we tried to heal," Sarah said into her recorder as soldiers approached the medical center. "We offered the galaxy our knowledge freely. We asked nothing in return but the chance to help." The transmission cut to static. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched the destruction of New Geneva. They broadcast their own version of events, claiming they had destroyed a secret weapons facility. But Sarah's recording had already reached every world. Everyone could see what really happened. The galactic response was silence. The Federation issued a brief statement expressing regret for civilian casualties, but supporting the right to self-defense. The collective said nothing. Dozens of species that had benefited from human medical research remained quiet. On Earth, presidents sat in the United Nations Security Council chamber watching the reports flood in. His daughter was dead. New Geneva, humanity's greatest achievement, was gone. The galaxy had seen the truth and chosen to do nothing. Secretary of Defense Admiral entered the chamber with new intelligence. "Mr. President, we're detecting movement by multiple species. They're positioning fleets near our other colonies. The incident was just the beginning." President looked at the peace medal on his desk, awarded to him 5 years earlier for preventing a war between the Rigel Alliance and the Republic. He had been so proud of that medal. It represented everything humanity stood for: understanding, compromise, healing. "How many more colonies are at risk?" he asked. "All of them, sir. 18 colonies, 43 research stations, and 12 diplomatic outposts. Intelligence suggests coordinated attacks are planned." President stood and walked to the window overlooking New York Harbor. In the distance, he could see the Statue of Liberty, that ancient symbol of hope and freedom. He thought about his daughter, who had died trying to save an alien child. He thought about the 1.3 million people who had trusted in humanity's commitment to peace. "Sir," Admiral waited for orders. President removed his peace medal and placed it carefully on the podium. When he turned back to face the Security Council, his expression had changed. The weight of 15 years of diplomatic success was gone, replaced by something harder and colder. "Send a message to all human colonies, ships, and stations," he said, his voice carrying new authority. "Diplomatic protocols are suspended. Rules of engagement are suspended. New Geneva will be remembered." Admiral felt a chill at the change in the president's tone. "Sir, what are your orders?" President walked back to his chair and sat down heavily. For 15 years, humanity had been the galaxy's mediators, the species that chose understanding over strength. They had prevented wars, saved lives, and built bridges between enemies. The galaxy had repaid this service with betrayal and murder. "Contact Admiral Sarah at Space Command. Tell her the diplomatic phase is over." President's voice was steady and cold. "The galaxy wanted to see what humans are capable of when we stop being nice. They're about to learn." In the silence that followed, every person in the chamber understood that something fundamental had changed. Humanity had tried to be healers, teachers, and peacemakers. They had offered their best to the galaxy and received hatred in return. The age of human diplomacy was ending. What would replace it would depend on how much mercy humanity had left after watching their children die for the crime of trying to heal the galaxy's wounds. Outside the chamber windows, the stars looked the same as always, but humanity's relationship with those stars had changed forever. The galaxy had demanded to see human strength instead of human wisdom. They were about to get exactly what they asked for. Admiral Sarah stood in the command center of Terra Station, watching displays that showed human ships moving throughout the galaxy. 72 hours had passed since President's order. 72 hours since humanity stopped pretending to be weak. "Admiral, the First Fleet is in position near the home system," reported Captain Martinez. "Second Fleet is moving to intercept their main battle group near Rigel. Third Fleet is standing by at Earth." Sarah nodded, her face calm despite the magnitude of what was happening. She had been humanity's chief diplomatic military advisor for 10 years. Her job had been to understand alien military capabilities so humans could negotiate from positions of knowledge. Now she was using that same knowledge for a very different purpose. "Status of the agricultural stations?" she asked. "All 27 stations have revealed their true nature," Captain Martinez replied. "Defensive systems are online. The who tried to attack Station 12 are no longer a threat." The galaxy was learning its first lesson about human deception. For 15 years, humanity had built agricultural research stations throughout known space. These stations grew crops and developed farming techniques, just as advertised. What the galaxy had not known was that each station was also a fortress, equipped with weapons designed specifically to counter alien military technology. When the Federation launched their attack on Agricultural Station 12, expecting to destroy a facility full of farmers, they instead found themselves facing humans who had spent 15 years studying military weaknesses. The fleet of 30 ships was destroyed in 17 minutes without a single human casualty. Sarah turned to the communications officer. "Any response from the High Command?" "Yes, ma'am. War Primary Ion is demanding to know how we destroyed their patrol fleet so quickly. He seems confused." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The patrol fleet had been eliminated by weapons that used their own crystal technology against them. Human scientists had discovered that specific harmonic frequencies could cause crystals to shatter. What had taken them decades to grow could be destroyed in seconds. "Show me the tactical display for the home system," Sarah ordered. The holographic display showed the heart of the Empire. Their beautiful crystal cities floated in space around their twin suns, connected by energy bridges that had taken centuries to build. 12 defense fleets protected the system, armed with weapons that had conquered dozens of worlds. "Analysis shows their defense grid has one critical weakness," Captain Martinez explained. "The energy bridges that connect their cities also power their shields, if we target the harmonic resonance points." "Their entire defensive network collapses," Sarah finished. "How long would it take to disable their fleet?" 17 minutes, Admiral, but that would leave their population defenseless." Sarah was quiet for a moment. The old Sarah, the diplomatic advisor, would have suggested negotiation, but that Sarah had died with the children of New Geneva. This Sarah had a different purpose. "We're not going to attack their cities," she said finally. "We're going to do something worse. We're going to make them dependent on us." Across the galaxy, humanity began demonstrating a new kind of warfare. They did not seek to destroy alien civilizations. Instead, they systematically took control of the infrastructure that kept those civilizations alive. The collective discovered this when their hive ships suddenly stopped responding to commands. Human cyber warfare specialists had penetrated their shared consciousness network, not to cause harm, but to install controls. Every ship, every facility, now operated only with human permission. "This is Queen Voice Ra to the human fleet," came the transmission. "What have you done to our ships?" Admiral's response was broadcast to the entire collective. "We have liberated your technology from your control. Your ships will continue to function as long as you do not threaten human interests. Your cities will have power, water, and food as long as you remain peaceful. This is what human protection looks like." The Federation faced a different lesson. When their fleet attempted to assault the human colony of New Berlin, they found their weapons turning against them. Human engineers had spent years understanding targeting systems during diplomatic exchanges. Now they used that knowledge to hack ships and turn their own guns on their fellow vessels. General sent a desperate message to Admiral, "Human leader, our weapons will not obey us. Our ships attack our own allies. What manner of sorcery is this?" "It's not sorcery," replied. "It's applied knowledge. For 15 years, your people showed us your technology during peace negotiations. We studied every circuit, every program, every weakness. We learned how to fix your machines when they broke. Now we've learned how to break them when they work." The galaxy watched in growing terror as humanity revealed capabilities that should not have existed. Human medical supply ships deployed weapons that targeted specific genetic markers, causing alien soldiers to fall asleep instead of die. Human research vessels demonstrated technology that could shut down entire planetary power grids without harming a single civilian. On the home world, High Commander sat in his crystal palace, watching reports from across his empire. Every world was still functioning, but nothing worked without human approval. Their ships flew only where humans allowed. Their weapons fired only when humans permitted. Their cities had power only because humans provided it. "How did they hide this capability?" he asked his war council. "Our intelligence showed them to be weak, focused only on peace and healing." His chief advisor's crystals pulsed with fear. "Commander, we believe we misunderstood their nature. The humans who negotiated with us were not representatives of a weak species. They were representatives of a species that chose restraint." "What do you mean?" "The same minds that could understand our psychology well enough to create peace could understand it well enough to destroy us. The same technology they used to heal could be modified to harm. The same databases they used to help us contained all the information they needed to defeat us." Felt something he had never experienced before: helplessness. His empire still existed, his people still lived, but they lived only by human permission. They who had considered themselves the galaxy's rightful rulers had become humanity's clients in the span of 18 months. Admiral received regular reports from human fleets across the galaxy. Each report confirmed the same pattern. Alien civilizations remained intact but completely dependent on human systems. No shots had been fired at civilian targets. No planets had been invaded. No populations had been harmed. Instead, humanity had achieved something far more complete than military victory. They had achieved total technological dominance. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the Galactic Council," reported the communications officer. "They're requesting immediate negotiations." Sarah looked at the message from species that had remained silent when children died on New Geneva, species that had supported humanity's destruction when they thought humans were weak. Now these same species wanted to talk. "Send them our terms," Sarah replied. "Unconditional surrender of all species that participated in attacks on human civilians, complete technological integration under human oversight, acceptance of human authority in all matters of conflict." "And if they refuse?" Sarah looked at the tactical displays showing human forces positioned throughout the galaxy. 18 months ago, these had been diplomatic missions and research stations. Now they were the foundation of humanity's new galactic order. Then they continue to live without power, without communications, and without the ability to travel between stars until they change their minds, she said. "We're not going to kill them. We're going to wait until they realize they can't live without us." The galaxy had demanded to see human strength instead of human mercy. They had forced humanity to abandon diplomacy and embrace control. Now they were learning the difference between a species that chose peace and a species that was incapable of war. Humanity had given the galaxy exactly what it asked for. The only question now was whether the galaxy could survive getting what it wanted. 2 years after the New Geneva massacre, High Commander of the Empire walked slowly into the Galactic Council chamber. His once proud crystal form was dimmer now, the light within him reduced to a faint glow. Behind him came representatives of species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Now they all shared the same expression: defeat. At the center of the chamber sat President, flanked by Admiral and Ambassador. Had traded her diplomatic robes for a military uniform. Her title was now Admiral, Commander of the Pacification Corps. The humans looked calm, almost bored, as the alien delegates took their seats. "The Empire formally requests terms for unconditional surrender," announced, his voice barely above a whisper. "We acknowledge human supremacy in all matters of galactic governance." President nodded but did not smile. There was no joy in this moment, only the satisfaction of a job completed. "Your surrender is accepted. Your empire will continue to exist under the terms we discussed." Those terms were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The empire still had its government, its culture, and its people, but every piece of technology they used was now provided and maintained by humans. Their ships flew on human fuel. Their cities ran on human power. Their computers operated with human software. They were not conquered in the traditional sense. They were domesticated. "The collective also surrenders," announced Queen Voice Ra, her insect eyes fixed on the floor. "We accept integration into the human protection system." "The Federation yields to human authority," General added, his massive frame seeming smaller somehow. "We pledge our fleets to serve human interests." One by one, every major species in the galaxy offered their surrender, not because their armies were defeated, but because their civilizations could not function without human permission. Humanity had not conquered worlds. They had conquered the technology that made modern life possible. President stood and walked to the center of the chamber. The same chamber where, 3 years ago, aliens had voted to strip humanity of diplomatic immunity. The same chamber where they had remained silent while human children died. "You made a mistake," said, his voice carrying clearly to every corner of the room. "You believed that our kindness came from weakness. You forgot that the species capable of perfect peace must first understand perfect war." He activated a holographic display showing the galaxy as it existed now. Human ships patrolled every major trade route. Human stations monitored every inhabited system. Human technology controlled every aspect of interaction. "We offered you partnership," continued. "We shared our knowledge freely. We prevented your wars and saved your children. You repaid us with betrayal and genocide. You chose to see what human strength looks like when we stop holding back." Admiral stepped forward with a data pad. "Current status report: 0 active conflicts between member species. 0 unauthorized military movements. 0 violations of law. The galaxy has achieved perfect peace." It was true. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy was completely peaceful, not because species had learned to get along, but because they no longer had the ability to fight. Every weapon system, every military ship, every defense grid operated under human oversight. The peace was absolute because humans made it absolute. "What happens now?" asked Delegate and from the Republic, one of the few species that had remained neutral during the conflict. President looked at the assembled representatives. These beings represented civilizations that were older than humanity, species that had conquered stars before humans learned to make fire. Now they sat in his chamber, waiting for his permission to return to their worlds. "Now you live under the new order," replied. "Your species may govern themselves however they choose. You may maintain your cultures, your religions, your ways of life, but major conflicts between species will be prevented before they begin." Admiral activated another display showing the Pacification Corps in action. Human analysts monitored communications between species, looking for signs of growing tension. When potential conflicts were identified, human mediators intervened immediately, not to negotiate as in the old days, but to end disputes before they could escalate. "We don't wait for wars to start," explained. "We stop them in the planning stages. If a species shows signs of aggression toward another, they receive a visit from the Pacification Corps. The visit continues until their aggressive intentions are corrected." The method was simple and terrifyingly effective. Species that planned attacks found their weapon systems mysteriously malfunctioning. Governments that considered territorial expansion discovered their communications networks temporarily disrupted. Leaders who threatened other species were invited to human facilities for educational discussions about the consequences of violence. "But what if we disagree with human decisions?" asked the delegate. His expression did not change. "Then you learn to live with disagreement, or you learn to live without technology. The choice is yours." The stark reality of human dominance was demonstrated daily across the galaxy. The system, where the original conflict had begun, was now a perfect example of human oversight. The three species mined the region together under human supervision. Any disputes were resolved immediately by human arbitrators whose decisions could not be appealed. It worked perfectly because no one had any choice but to make it work. As the council session ended, delegates filed out quietly. They would return to their home worlds to explain to their people that the age of independent civilizations was over. From now on, every species lived under human protection, whether they wanted it or not. President remained in the chamber with his senior staff. Through the transparent walls, he could see Earth's blue surface below, peaceful and protected by the most powerful military force in galactic history. "Any regrets?" Admiral asked. Thought about his daughter Sarah, about the children of New Geneva, about the 15 years humanity had spent trying to be friends with species that saw friendship as weakness. "No regrets," he said finally. "We tried to teach them about peace. They taught us about necessity." Admiral pulled up the final display, showing a new human colony ship approaching a distant world. The ship was different from the old colony vessels. This one carried not just settlers, but a complete military garrison and technological infrastructure to ensure the colony could defend itself. On the ship's hull was inscribed a memorial to New Geneva. Below the names of the dead, a simple message: "We tried to heal the galaxy. The galaxy taught us to rule it instead." The colony ship would establish humanity's settlement, one that would serve as a monitoring station for several alien civilizations in that sector. The colonists would live normal lives, raising families and building communities. But they would also ensure that their alien neighbors never again mistook human kindness for human weakness. Walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere among them, billions of beings lived in perfect peace under human oversight. They had their freedom, their cultures, their lives. They also had humanity watching over them, ensuring that the peace continued forever. The galaxy had wanted to see human strength. They had forced humanity to abandon diplomacy and embrace control. Now they lived in a universe where war was impossible, conflict was prevented before it began, and peace was maintained by species that understood both healing and destruction. It was exactly what they had asked for when they chose to see humans as obstacles instead of allies. The galaxy had taught humanity a valuable lesson. Sometimes the greatest kindness is refusing to allow others to make destructive choices. Now humanity would ensure the galaxy never forgot that lesson. Forever,